And breaking news coming in from France. 6 children have been injured in a mass stabbing spree in the French town of Annecy. That's the piece of breaking news that's coming in, where 6 children have been injured after an assailant went on a mass stabbing spree in the French town of Annecy. What we are learning is that 6 children have been injured in this entire incident. This has taken place in the town of Annecy. This is in the French Alps, ladies and gentlemen. 6 children have been injured after an assailant went on a mass stabbing spree in the French town of Annecy. I'm joined by my colleague Siddhant on the phone line. Siddhant, reports suggest that this assailant was actually a Syrian asylum seeker who went on this stabbing spree in Annecy.
Well, that's right. So the report that we are getting from France right now is that 6 nursery children and 1 adult have suffered injuries, and this was a mass stabbing which took place this morning in French Alps while playing in a playground. There was a lone man who has been spotted armed with a knife, and he attacked a group of children aging between 3 years to 9 years, and this happened at 9:45 local time. Now, the unarmed suspect has been arrested. He's being thoroughly interrogated by law enforcement agencies in France. And in fact, multiple agencies are right now working on this particular case. So this is a prima facie detail that we are getting that 6 children and 1 adult have been stabbed by this lone stabber. Back to you.
And what are we learning about the condition of these children? Because these are very young children who've been attacked by this assailant.
Well, all of them have been rushed to the hospital, and they are being given to proper treatment. Some of them have been given first aid, and then those who require clinical treatment, and that is also being done right now. We are trying to get more information with regards to the health of these, with regards to the injuries that these 8 of them have suffered. But right now, the police's focus is to know whether this attacker is linked to any of the groups, or perhaps had some intention in mind, and what was a motive behind doing this. So that is something which police is trying to ascertain.
Right. And Siddhant, the report suggests that this man was a Syrian asylum seeker. The opposition must be really up in arms, given the fact that Emmanuel Macron has been in favor of allowing Syrian asylum seekers into France. But the opposition was always up in arms about that, saying that this allows the spread of terror in France.
Absolutely. And in fact, you see the conservative right-wing politics is on a rise in France also. And in fact, France has been a victim of radical terrorism. There have been several bomb blasts, and in fact, time and again there have been a lot of conversions. And in fact, a lot of citizens have gone to Syria and Iraq to join ISIS. So France has seen it all, and this could perhaps make things difficult for Emmanuel Macron's government in France, because the conservative parties are going to and conservative groups are going to raise this issue, because since this attacker has a background of coming from a family of Syrian asylum. So that perhaps makes this case even more interesting, and this is the reason that the police is also trying to sort of understand that which group he belongs to, what are his credentials, and does he have some terrorist background. So all those background checks is currently being done.
Right, and which is why we're seeing such a mobilization by the French government also, Siddhant, because what we're learning is that the French Prime Minister, Elisabeth Borne, is traveling to this town of Annecy, which is located in the southeast of the country. The country's National Assembly also held a minute of silence at the opening of the morning session. So in the wake of this very gruesome attack, where children have been targeted by reportedly a Syrian asylum seeker, the French government mobilizing very quickly in trying to contain the narrative surrounding this entire incident.
Absolutely. The narrative fight has already started, and the National Assembly, as you rightly mentioned, observed a minute of silence, and in fact, in some places, roads were blocked. The senior leadership of the Macron government have been rushed to the.
Right, we'll try to reconnect with Siddhant over there, but that's the piece of breaking news that's coming in. 6 children have been injured in this stabbing incident which has taken place in the town of Annecy. This is in the French Alps. I'm also joined by Pathikrit Payne on the phone line. Mr. Payne, how do you see this incident coming in? Reports suggest it was a Syrian asylum seeker who targeted these children, 6 nursery-level children who have been injured in this stabbing incident.
Well, I think, we should ideally wait for what the French government and authorities say. But at the same time, there are 2 issues I want to focus upon. Number one, many of these Syrian asylum seekers came out of Syria when there was this war going on in those places because of terrorism, because of ISIS. And unfortunately, if they have been given asylum, or if they have been given, the status of a refugee in countries like France and many other European countries, if they try to do the same thing, then it's really unfortunate. And at the same time, we have seen this trend happening when ISIS got disintegrated. They got defeated in Middle East, especially in Syria and in Iraq. It actually told its whole cadre and many of its people who have joined from across the country, the world, to go back to their respective countries and continue with the lone wolf attack. So this whole concept of a wolf attack, with something like as rudimentary as a knife and going out and stabbing, or even using very basic things to create a basic IED. These are very, very dangerous and newer dimensions of terrorism coming up, against which it is very difficult even for the law enforcement agencies to prevent it at every point, because at the same time we see online radicalization also going on. Now, if somebody goes and stabs children, then nothing can be more worse. It is even worse than, the conventional concept of terrorism. I think it has to be deplored, condemned, and strictest of action has to be taken, not just against the person who did it, but those who prop up these people, radicalize them, tell them that it is all fine to do this. That is the problem. Those elements, those sleeper cells, be it in France or elsewhere, or whether they're doing through online, those sources, those who are actually forcing and pushing people to that extent, those have to be found out and investigated. And let me tell you, it is something happening in France. It can happen in India too. So we all have to be collectively this kind of new dangerous trend. It is very unfortunate. We hope that this is done and in future such acts are prevented.
Right, and if you see those visuals on the right side of your screen, ladies and gentlemen, these are visuals coming in from the National Assembly, and where top officials of the French government have said that there is nothing more abominable than attacking children. To the victims of the Annecy attack, to their families, to the police and rescue forces mobilized to help them, the upset assembly expressed its support with a minute of silence. So that's the pitch that's coming from the French government, which is mobilizing all its resources when it comes to delivering support to the children and the families in the Annecy attack, and also to contain the narrative, because on the other side, in the opposition, you have the National Front led by Marine Le Pen. I'm also joined by Sanjay Suri on the broadcast. Sanjay, when it comes to this entire tussle over allowing the entry of refugees from war-torn nations, namely Syria, this has been a big hot potato, political hot potato in France, and has led to a lot of political skirmishes between the National Front and the Macron government, and this is likely to flare up once again.
Well, this act, unbelievably brutal as it is, will lead to political consequences. And clearly the debate in France on migration has been very severe. It has been heightened. We've seen the rise of Le Pen. And this is only going to heighten that debate further and strengthen the camp of Le Pen and the Le Pen likes within France. This is being seen now and will be seen as an outsider who comes into the country, who is invited into the country. The country opens its doors to somebody who declares himself suffering and in need for shelter. And then what does he do? He goes and attacks children, 3-year-olds. They're struggling for their life. This is going to shock France as it will shock the world. And it's really going to lead to questions whether France should let in more people who could do potentially anything like this.
Right, and at the same time, Sanjay, when it comes to the Macron government, at one point he was facing a lot of fire over pension reform. Now this entire incident where a Syrian asylum seeker has attacked nursery-level children, he has just handed more ammunition to Marine Le Pen, and she will go all out to discredit his government.
Oh, most certainly, there's going to be a very heavy political fallout of this, and this is not going to be forgotten in a hurry, not by people, not by political parties opposing the policies of this government. This is going to lead to a review, and this is going to lead to a further strengthening of the far right, not just in France, but right across Europe. And over recent years, we have seen the far right gain strength, gain momentum. We've seen it win more and more seats, election after election. We saw the result in Italy not very long back. And this is going to lead to demands for a more or less closed-door policy to migrants that the country cannot economically, and now as it turns out, even for the survival of its citizens, go on taking more people that are threatening people, threatening children, threatening the economy, and threatening their lifestyle. This is the view that the far right has been propagating with increasing success, and that is going to be stepped up without doubt as a result of this.
Right, and clearly, Sanjay, if you look at the Macron government, it's clearly desperate because 3 children are in very critical condition. At the same time, the French Prime Minister, Elisabeth Borne, is now traveling to the town. And those visuals on your screen where we can see passers-by trying to overpower the assailant who attacked these 6 children. Remember, these were nursery-level children. And what we are learning is that it was a Syrian asylum seeker armed with a knife who attacked these 6 children. 3 of them are in critical condition, ladies and gentlemen. And there you can see those visuals on your screen. You have passers-by who identified him and then tried to overpower him before he could cause any more havoc in the town of Annecy, because this man targeted children. These are nursery-level children that he targeted. He stabbed them. 3 of them are in critical condition. Now, a lot of resources and forces have been mobilized to Annecy in order to contain the entire situation. Macron's government is facing even more pressure because this man was a Syrian asylum seeker, and that has been a point of contention between the Macron government and the opposition, which has been led by Marine Le Pen and her party, the National Front, which has called for pretty much a closed-door policy when it comes to migrants because of suspected terror links. So that's what we are learning that's coming in from Annecy, and Sanjay continues to be with us on the broadcast. Sanjay, clearly the Macron government is facing the pressure because no less than the Prime Minister has been mobilized to assess the situation in Annecy.
Well, we are talking about 3-year-olds fighting for their life here. And should the unthinkable happen, can you believe the narrative that will be circulated in France, the pictures that will go out, the family story that will be spread around the country about any tragedy such as this? The injuries themselves are bad enough. Given the extent of feeling this is going to generate, certainly the Prime Minister would visit the area. Certainly other leaders will visit the area. And this is going to lead to a renewal of a debate that has plagued France for a long time. And let's not duck away from the fact that this debate will inevitably have a religious dimension to it, and not just a political and, of course, the moral dimension. Right. There is a very strong issue about migration, migrants, where they're coming from, their values, their way of life. We have seen a number of incidents. We have seen a number of terror incidents, attacks. Many people have been killed in France, in Paris, in other places over a number of years. And this is a problem that has raised questions about freedom of speech. And this problem is now seen afresh, and it will be renewed.
Absolutely, and this will flare up the politics between the left and the right. I'm also joined by Sushant Sareen on the broadcast, and we're also learning that the Interior Minister of France, Gerald Darmanin, has tweeted that the culprit has been arrested thanks to the rapid reaction of the security forces. But what we are learning is that 3 children are in critical condition. Mr. Sareen, this assailant was a Syrian asylum seeker who targeted young children, nursery-level children, 6 of them in the town of Annecy. 3 of them are in critical condition. How do you see these developments?
Look, I don't know what the identity of the man is, but if you say that he was indeed a Syrian asylum seeker, then I think this event could prove to be something of a watershed event, because there's something particularly horrible when small children are targeted in such a brutal manner. And the problem is going to be that this is not, somebody carrying weapons and stuff like that. This is somebody using everyday implements, house, kitchen equipment to go and carry out an attack like this against defenseless little children. So I think it's going to cause a lot of horror, it's going to cause a lot of pain, and it's going to cause a lot of outrage. And I think it was Sanjay Suri before me. I couldn't agree more with what he said, that yes, this is going to further fuel those debates on immigration. And in fact, it's going to further strengthen the voices on the far right. Many of those voices on the far right in Europe have a legitimate grievance against the more liberal governments and the most liberal establishment, because it is to be expected that anybody who comes and migrates into your country follows your rules, norms, your culture. Even if the person wants to follow his own culture, he does not impose it on the rest of the society. But if a particular bunch of migrants try and impose themselves and their values and their way of life on the country in which they have taken refuge, then clearly something is going to give somewhere along the line.
Right.
And I think the kind of multiculturalism, and it's a rather weird kind of multiculturalism which has been followed in the Western countries, less so in Europe, but even more in places like Canada, in places like Britain, a couple of other places, where you have things like Sharia courts being set up. You have all kinds of other abominable activities taking place, and everybody keeping a hands-off approach simply because you can be accused of Islamophobia or you can be accused of racism. I think these countries need to get their act together to ensure that, people are not able to get away with these kind of crimes. And it's not just about getting hold of the assailant. You've got hold of one assailant today, there'll be another one tomorrow, there'll be somebody who will drive a car or a truck or something else in somebody else. So I think the problem also has been in the West that they haven't really understood the phenomena what they are up against.
Right.